I'm going to talk about today Cuba's national healthcare system and how Cuba's national healthcare system is not only exceptional and fantastic in comparison to a lot of countries around the world, but how it is extremely sustainable. And though a lot of people around the world, from James Bond movies, from the Hollywood blockbusters and several other things, have a completely different stereotype of Cuba, such as women in bikinis and naturally men with large Cuban cigars. And as much as a lot of us would wish that it was these things that were true, Cuba has a lot more to offer than just those two things and the beautiful architecture and the old-fashioned Chevrolets driving around as if they were still in the 1950s. But it is Cuba's healthcare that is extremely interesting. And it all started in the 1950s and 1960s when a man called Fidel Castro adopted his own regime. And here's a picture of him. Is a very famous image, this one here, of the man, and this is seen all around the world. In the 1950s and 60s, he adapted a way, despite his socialist and communist regime, he adapted ways in which the education rate, the infant mortality rate, and the life expectancy would all heighten in the next 50 to 100 years. And he did a fantastic job in only 15-20 years. And this is because he invested huge amounts, and the government invested huge amounts in Cuba to become a very healthy nation. And I think it was the United Nations that said Cuba's healthcare is a perfect example for all countries around the world to adopt, in a way that it means the Cubans can live in a very healthy state of living. But here's a few fun facts, I suppose. Cuba has a life expectancy of 79 years, and this is 1 year more than the United States and only 2 years less than the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom is also a country that has adopted free healthcare, and its national health system and its national health service are very similar in some ways. However, Cubans is even more extreme. So, for example, in Cuba, you have a clinic on every 3 streets. You have a doctor for every 5 people, and from all hospitals, all pharmacies, all clinics, and all physicians, you can obtain free medication as long as you have a prescription. And frankly, I think this is absolutely fantastic because it saves people hundreds, thousands, if not millions and millions of dollars wasting money on medication, or not necessarily wasting money, but spending money on medication that is extremely expensive to obtain. And I think none of us really want to suffer from a scenario like this. And a lot of people, unfortunately, in a place like the United States, where medication can be expensive to obtain with simply a private healthcare system, nobody wants to go broke. And this is seen all over the Cuban country and all over the world, and it is the doctor with the flag, and how it is a symbol of the nation, not only all of its other aspects, obviously, as discussed. But Cuba is an example for all third world countries, I think, more specifically than just its healthcare. And it's how a country of a poor nature, such as itself, can find such ways in providing a brilliant system. And that is simply investment. And years ago, through the acts of Castro and the revolution of the 1950s, the investment was poured in from its nation to prioritize health and prioritize education in a way that people could live in a very sustainable way. And I think now that Cuba has a way of communicating with the States, as it has formed an alliance also with Europe, and there's no longer any more trading embargoes, Cuba can find a way to even extensively influence other countries in a way to follow its healthcare system and provide people with the ways that they have, in the sense that they send all kinds of people all around the world into Central Africa, into South America, and also into the Far East, to help not only with missions, but to help villages where children are, and to help poorer places, to provide them with vaccines and medication. And here is a little quote that I came up with, and it is, hold on, health is wealth. And as you can tell by the beautiful smiles on these kids' faces, the Cubans are certainly making an extreme difference. And with an infant mortality rate that is so low of only 4.2, Cuba is doing a brilliant job. And yeah, I mean, there's not too much really to boast about But Cuba is certainly a country that, though seen as a very, very quiet island and it's very distant, it's amazing how such a small place and such a small reputation can be so incredible, because honestly its healthcare system is leading around the world and it is very, very advanced for what it has.